The nominations for Album of the Year for 2026 are quite questionable, not because the artists who are nominated are deserving of a Grammy, but because of the massive pivot in artistry compared to last year's Grammy nominations. For example, an album like Short and Sweet transformed Sabrina Carpenter's music career prior to having multiple flop eras. The albums this year barely scratch the surface when it comes to making an impact on new pop territory, especially when taking a look at last year's pop nominations including Brat, Short and Sweet, and the Tortured Poets Department. However, in today's video, I'll be explaining why Man's Best Friend deserves to win Album of the Year based on these three categories: the creative process, fan reception, and the legacy of the album. Now, before getting into why I feel like Man's Best Friend is deserving a winning Album of the Year, I'd like to go over first the process of how Grammy winners are selected. The people voting for who takes home a Grammy are called the Recording Academy voting members, and there are currently about 15,000 of them. I wanted to bring this up because unlike other award shows such as the AMAs, where adoring fans get to vote for their favorite artist to win an award, the Grammy voting members are rather a jury of peers. Like anything, there's pros and cons to this. The good thing about voting members being made up of peers is it allows for a more unbiased, diverse range of who actually wins. For example, an artist like Casey Musgraves and John Batiste would have had a much harder time winning within their years during 2019 and 2022 had Grammy wins been left up to a fan vote. Had it been left up to a fan vote, the more popular artists who were nominated during those years, such as Drake, who released Scorpion at the time, and Billie Eilish, who released Happier Than Ever at the time, would have had a clean sweep, ultimately making the Grammy voting system biased towards bigger artists if that were the case. However, it isn't. Even for more popular artists such as Adele and Taylor Swift, that's why we, the fans, are so cheerful when albums like 25 and Folklore win, but confused when albums like Cowboy Carter win. On the flip side, the Recording Academy voting system isn't necessarily representative of who we, the fans, want to win. For example, there was a massive outrage last year considering how Billie Eilish didn't win any Grammys for her newest album, Hit Me Hard and Soft, despite having massive fan reception for her album. This is the first time ever, other than Ariana Grande, of course, where despite an artist achieving numeric success and positive fan reception, that unfortunately does not equate to a large number of Grammy wins. Sometimes a jury of peers doesn't equate to what the fans want to win, as every member of the voting academy has their own motive for who they want to win. Despite the system having some flaws, however, I'd actually say that I prefer the Grammy voting system over a regular fan voting system because, like the AMAs or iHeartRadio Awards that allow for fan voting, the Grammy voting system actually allows for less mainstream artists to have a chance for their work to be recognized, which I feel like is a less biased system. Alright, enough talking about the Grammys. Let's go into my reasoning why I feel like Man's Best Friend deserves to win Album of the Year for 2026. And the first category I wanted to go over is the creative process for writing Man's Best Friend. I would argue that Man's Best Friend creative writing process was a lot better compared to Sabrina's previous two albums. Taking a look back at Emails I Can't Send, this album had a whopping 5 singles until the fifth and final single, Nonsense, finally became a hit. For those of you guys that don't know, releasing too many singles for an album dilutes the album's overall impact, making the full release of the album feel less special, as fans have already heard most of the content. Albums often tell stories, so pre-releasing too many tracks breaks this flow, ultimately turning songs meant to work together into isolated singles. On the other hand, I actually don't have anything bad to say about Short and Sweet because the album rollout, in my opinion, was perfect with all 3 singles, Espresso, Please Please Please, and Taste, all having over 1 billion streams on Spotify. The only reason why I like the creative writing process for Man's Best Friend better is just out of my own personal preference for the songwriting and the lyrics. Taking a look at Man's Best Friend's track list, you may think that this is just a simple breakup album, but I actually beg to differ. The main muse behind many of the album's songs is a man by the name of Barry Keoghan, someone who recently dated Sabrina Carpenter. To summarize Sabrina and Barry's relationship, in late 2023, rumors began after they were spotted on dinner dates in Los Angeles. In February 2024, they made their first ever public appearance at a Grammys after party. In March of 2024, they attended the Oscars after party and were seen supporting each other at the Eras tour. In May 2024, they made their relationship official at the Met Gala red carpet. In June of 2024, Kyogen starred as her love interest in the Please 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 music video, a significant hard launch for the couple. In late 2024, sources claim their relationship was on and off again, with them deciding to take a break after their demanding careers and conflicting schedules. The most prominent thing that I wanted to mention about Sabrina and Barry's relationship was the Please 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 music video. Having him involved in the music video was one of the smartest creative decisions that she could have ever made, because in this video, his character engages in fighting and robbing people at gunpoint. And while she's there for them, bailing him out, but eventually takes matters into her own hands, ultimately handcuffing and leaving him for good, almost foreshadowing what was about to come within the man's best friend era. Diving deeper into Please Please Please's chorus, the chorus states, "Please, please, please, don't prove I'm right. Don't bring me to tears when I just did my makeup so nice. Heartbreak is one thing, my ego's another. I beg you don't embarrass me, motherfucker." The reason why I want to go over this chorus was because this chorus is basically Sabrina making a vulnerable plea to her new lover, asking him not to confirm her friend's doubts about him, as she begs for him not to embarrass her or break her heart, especially after she defended his character not only to her friends and family, but also to the public as well. The overall message of the song highlights themes of protective love, fragile ego, and hoping for something different despite past patterns in his behavior. Now, I know I did a whole lot of talking about the short and sweet era, but the foreshadowing that Please 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 gives us was ingenious. Please Don't Prove I'm Right works both ways, in which, for one, if the relationship worked, she would have felt loved and fulfilled. And if the second scenario played out, which ultimately did, if this relationship didn't work, then she was right all along and can transition into the creation of a breakup album, which was ultimately Man's Best Friend. Diving deeper into Man's Best Friend's track list, this is not the simple breakup album that people will make it out to be. In my opinion, this album actually has two muses rather than the expected one. The songs about Barry Keoghan, because we literally just spent the last 2 minutes talking about him, include Manchild, My Man on Willpower, and Sugar Talking, in which they stay consistent in making fun of him, failing to meet Sabrina's expectations. The second muse isn't really a person, but rather a feeling. It's Sabrina's anxieties. Some songs that come to mind include Tears, Go-Go Juice, and Don't Worry, I'll Make You Worry, as she directly pokes fun at her own impulses when she's tipsy or anxiously attached to a man that isn't giving her the same attention that she's giving him. Taking a look at some examples, Sabrina's song Tears states, "I get wet at the thought of you, being a responsible guy. Treating me like you're supposed to do, tears run down my thigh." There's a lot to unpack here. This song makes fun of herself as she explains being aroused by men treating her right, even though that's pretty much the bare minimum, implying that Sabrina isn't really used to having her feelings considered. I really like Tears because it's self aware in a self deprecating way, and that's not really something you'd see within a usual breakup album. The second example I can come up with is another song of hers on the album, Man's Best Friend, Don't Worry, I'll Make You Worry. The lyrics state, "So don't worry, I'll make you worry like no other girl can. So don't worry, I'll leave you feeling like a shell of a man." Now, this song pokes at herself quite differently from the previous song that I mentioned, because rather than doing so jokingly like she usually does, she does so psychologically. Within this song, Sabrina projects her own anxiety and need for reassurance onto the man that she's dating. This eventually makes him feel insecure because of Sabrina's inability to communicate her feelings with him, or his inability to empathize with her perspective. So, what exactly do these songs have to do with Man's Best Friend's creative writing process? I use these two songs as proof that the album isn't nearly as simple as people make it out to be. Man's Best Friend is an incredibly diverse album featuring songs that go into dating incompetent men, holding a resentment for your ex, and projecting your anxieties onto your boyfriend before the breakup. Now, with all things to consider for this category, including Sabrina's previous album releases compared to Man's Best Friend, Sabrina's dating history with Barry Keoghan, Man's Best Friend's continuation of Please Please Please, and the complexity of Man's Best Friend's tracklist, I have to give Man's Best Friend's score for its creative writing process an A plus. Okay, that was kind of cringy, guys. I'm not even gonna lie. The second category I wanted to go over as to why Man's Best Friend is deserving Album of the Year is fan reception. How did fans receive Man's Best Friend when it was first released and when Manchild was released as a lead single? Now, before getting into that, I actually want to go over track 2 of Man's Best Friend, which was Tears, and also a single for the album. Track 2, on the other hand, Tears, had a different way for promoting the album. Unlike Manchild's role of summarizing the album as a whole, Tears is a humorous track where Sabrina playfully makes fun of herself. The Tears TikTok trend featuring Sabrina Carpenter's song involves a makeup/appearance transition, starting with a sad, barefaced look, shifting into a glamorous makeup look, symbolizing a post-heartbreak, glow-up, or emotional transformation, capitalizing on the song's theme and relatable lyrics. I wanted to bring the Tears TikTok trend up because allowing a song to organically blow up through social media use is a much better way to gain traction compared to using ads and websites. This is because fan engagement builds a following by transforming passive consumers into active participants. And some examples of that include creating emotional bonds with your fans, fostering community growth, and making fans feel involved, leading to increased loyalty, advocacy, and spending on merch. This strategy of building a fandom is quite reminiscent to how Charli XCX's song Apple was promoted through a viral TikTok dance trend. This TikTok trend elevated Brat Summer by acting as a powerful organic marketing tool that spread Charli's music and album aesthetic across social media and mainstream culture. Ultimately, the Brat Summer phenomenon was not a straightforward marketing campaign, but rather a fan-led culture movement similar to Man's Best Friend almost, that blew up through trending content on social media and the artist's authentic engagement. So outside of social media, how exactly did fans receive Man's Best Friend? Going back to the overarching theme of how fans received Man's Best Friend, fans had mixed reactions, but generally a positive reception. The fans really enjoyed the catchy tunes of the album, cheeky lyrics, and fun pop vibe that this album had to offer. But unfortunately, the provocative album cover sparked debate, with some finding it misogynistic and others embracing its intended bold sexualized theme, leading to a fan-focused rollout. If I had to form my own opinion, however, I feel as if this controversial album cover was actually intentional, as it illustrates how quickly the internet is to ridicule women for a man's actions. And you know what? What if she had a hair pulling kink? What's so wrong with having a hair pulling kink? In all seriousness, though, there's one more thing I'd like to go over before giving Man's Best Friend its fan reception score, and it involves the number of Spotify streams. And looking at the track list, the highest streamed song, Manchild, has 650 million streams. Following that is Tears, the second single, with 325 million streams, and When Did You Get So Hot, with 275 million streams. The rest of the songs, however, on the album average around 100 to 200 million streams. Critically acclaimed sources such as Pitchfork gave Man's Best Friend a rating of 7.9 out of 10, praising the album for its clever lyrics, humor, and strong thematic cohesion and evolution of her pop sound, featuring tracks with R&B and classic pop. Other sources such as The Guardian gave Man's Best Friend a 4 out of 5 stars, praising its detailed and provocative pop production, as well as the needle drop, giving the album a 7 out of 10, noting its inconsistencies and heavy use of sexual themes. After taking careful consideration of Man's Best Friend's social media presence, fans' opinions, number of Spotify streams, as well as how sources rank the album, I have to give the fan reception ranking for Man's Best Friend a score of a B-. The third and final category I wanted to go over is Man's Best Friend's legacy. Now, obviously this isn't a lyric analysis video because if it were, I could quite literally go on for hours. But I did want to go over Man Child, the lead single for the album once again. I only want to bring this up since it is so important for a lead single to A, act as a trailer for the upcoming album, B, build excitement, and C, attract new listeners. In my humble opinion, I felt as if Man Child only achieved 1 out of 3 of these things. Can you take a guess? The answer is A. Manchild does a great job at expanding upon the theme of dating incompetent men, but unfortunately falls short upon its lyricism. If it were up to me, I would have made the lead single for the album House Tour because the chorus, "Do you want the house tour? I can take you to the first, second, third floor, and I promise none of this is a metaphor," is much catchier and actually has substance to it compared to Never Heard of Self-Care, Half Your Brain Just Ain't There, Manchild. As important it is for lead singles to be a trailer for the whole album, prioritizing building excitement and attracting new listeners is crucial in creating a defining era that fans will remember, which unfortunately I feel like Manchild fell quite short on. So what if House Tour had ended up being the lead single instead? I could have imagined a complete rebrand for the Man's Best Friend era. Considering the lyrics have imagery of being in a Barbie dream house, I can imagine a music video where Sabrina is dressed up in a pink bedazzled dress as she's being edited to dash quickly through a staircase to correspond with the song's lyrics. On top of the music video redesign, I also thought of the way that House Tour could have been a TikTok trend, and it goes something like this. I can take you to the first, second, third floor. Something like that, but better, with the choreography taking place in the music video and eventually trending on TikTok. Had all of these things been done, such as House Tour being the lead single, House Tour receiving a music video, and the audio becoming a sensational TikTok dance trend, had all of these things, House Tour being the lead single, House Tour receiving a music video, and the audio becoming a sensational TikTok dance trend, been taken into consideration, I am almost certain that House Tour would have had the same success as Espresso. I'll be honest, when analyzing the legacy of how Man's Best Friend could have been improved, I was starkly reminded by Taylor Swift's album, Lover. The lead single for Lover ended up being Me, which had extremely negative fan reception for its camp and childhood lyrics. Fans and news articles argued that Me failed to capture the mature tone of Swift's previous album Reputation, with the album being perceived as overly glossy and generic pop. Critics, on the other hand, questioned the song's message of self-love coming across as disingenuous, and fans finding it misleading about the whole album's sound, with many preferring other album tracks that end up trending in 2025, such as Cruel Summer. This is exactly why choosing the right lead single for your album is so important. A lead single is not only representative of stepping into a new era, but if done poorly, it will disrupt the album's cycle as a whole when fans are misled about the whole album's theme. On the flip side, Man's Best Friend may not be Sabrina's most successful album, but I can admire when artists step out of their comfort zone and take rhetorical risks, which this album did indeed do. An example that comes to mind is a song on the album Sugar Talking, which showcases this perfectly, such as using the lyrics, "Saying that you missed me, boy, do you want a prize," and "You filled my whole apartment with flowers that die," going over how men use sweet, smooth talk to gain intimacy, a unique theme that I haven't seen a lot of main pop girls go over. Now, when doing research about the rhetorical risk that Man's Best Friend took, I was quite taken aback by what 2 articles had to say. The Boar states, Carpenter doesn't challenge herself to be bold or weird or outlandish in a way that is radical, which I find so insane. While I agree that this album's instrumentals and production are quite unoriginal, Jack Antonoff, it'd be unfair to claim that the album isn't weird or outlandish when Man's Best Friend as a whole isn't just a breakup album, with many of the songs that we've discussed earlier, such as Don't Worry, I'll Make You Worry, and Go-Go Juice, poking fun at herself instead of fitting into the usual theme of dating incompetent men. After taking everything into consideration for the legacy of Man's Best Friend, including the lead single, the music video, the social media impact of the album, and the rhetorical risk that this album took, I have to give Man's Best Friend a legacy score of a C+. So after going over the three categories involving the creative process, the fan reception, and the legacy of Man's Best Friend, I have to give the album an overall rating of a B. This album has definitely had its highs and low points, which its highest point being the creative writing process, and its lowest point being its potential legacy. Now, even though I gave Man's Best Friend a relatively low legacy score, I can commend Sabrina for taking lots of rhetorical risks for this album, because there are some artists out there that repeat the same formula because it worked out for them the first time, ultimately diluting their discography. If given the chance, I'm really hoping Man's Best Friend gets the recognition it deserves, because it truly is a whirlwind of an album. Despite this album not achieving the past numeric success of Sabrina's previous albums, this body of work explores the many emotions at play when experiencing a breakup, as well as dating someone that didn't quite meet your standards. Let me know in the comments below if you guys agreed with my take and what Grammys you think Sabrina is going to take home and what categories she's going to win. Let me know what other artists you're rooting for at the Grammys this year and what other artists y'all want me to do video essays on. Drink some water, get well rested, and have a good rest of your day. And thank you so much for watching this video. Leave a like and leave a comment down below. Bye, y'all!